Hey guys, it's Snowbiter, and as a follow-up to the last commentary I posted, I wanted to post this replay that I had with the Batchat on Kharkov, because Kharkov is a map that I think is much more friendly to heavy tanks than medium tanks. And for me, I find it's one of the trickier maps for being consistent on when I'm playing a medium tank, so I wanted to talk a bit about how I approach playing this map, both in a medium tank in general and with the Batchat specifically. Now, as I've talked about before, when I'm playing the Bat solo, I tend to prefer not to commit to a flank at the very start of a game. It depends a little bit on the map, but especially on a map like Kharkov, where I find it's a little difficult to predict where tanks are going to go, I usually like to wait and see how my team deploys and how the enemy team deploys before I decide to go to one flank or to help one flank. So what I typically end up doing is if I spawn on the north spawn, I go to this area around F7 or F8, and from the south spawn I go kind of where that STB is playing around G5, because it's usually a good way of getting vision on what the enemy sends to that southeast area of the map. And you can sometimes get a shot or two off on the tanks that are crossing. You have to be a little careful, especially if you're playing as far out of cover as I am right there, because those bushes don't provide great camo, and if you decide to shoot at all, you're almost always going to get lit. But I like playing that spot because it's usually good for getting one or two shots off, and it's really one of the few ways I feel like on this map you can get a little bit of early damage without committing to a flank at the start of the game. The one issue though with Kharkov is that the map is so small that games tend to develop very quickly, so if you're playing too cautiously or too passively, or if you don't commit to a flank early enough, a lot of times games will end up being decided before you can really have much of an impact on a game, and especially with a tank like the Batchat, you might be able to get off one clip, but if your team is kind of in a losing position at that point, then there's really not a whole lot you can do. Because the map is so small, you don't really have a chance to take advantage of camo or being able to kind of run away and use vision to your advantage. So generally speaking, I find that when I'm playing a medium tank, in order to have any kind of success on this map, you have to be able to react very quickly to what's going on around you and what you see on the mini-map. Situational awareness is really important on this map. And you also often have to just kind of take a bit of a gamble. So that's essentially what you saw right there. Pretty soon after I took that first shot on the Type 61 crossing, I decided, since there were only 3 tanks that the enemy had sent to the southeast area of the map, and really the M103 was the only tank that's engaging anything on the southeast, I decided to move up and just get shots into the sides of the grill and kill the Type 61. Because I was pretty sure at that point, once the Type 61 crossed, there was really nothing else I was going to be able to do from that position, or by just hanging back in general. So again, now I'm reloading. I wanted to get back into a bit of a flex position, and I was looking at my mini-map there and not really paying attention to where I was driving. And I'm essentially just looking for tanks that are isolated at this point, because, I mean, only 3 minutes have passed in this game, but just about half the tanks on each team are dead, so there should be a little bit more room to maneuver. And even on city maps, a tank like the Batchat can be really effective if you can take full advantage of that 5-shot autoloader. There's really no better tank in the late game situations at taking out isolated tanks. So I saw that this 121 was isolated from the rest of his team, and he wasn't even looking at me when I moved up close to him, so it was a pretty easy kill for me. Again, I decided to reload pretty quickly because there weren't really any obvious ways for me to get those last 2 shots off. And again, I'm going to back off into a bit more of a flex position and just reevaluate where my teammates are and where the enemy tanks are. So initially here, I was actually thinking I would go back toward our base and help the bats on the 263, but I get spotted there by the Patton as I'm crossing that opening. And I didn't want the enemy team to know where I was going, and especially since the grill on my team had gone south and was kind of isolated from the rest of us, I didn't want the enemy team to know that he was by himself. So I decided instead to wait until I dropped lights and then actually go back around, because I'm expecting that once the Patton spots me, he's going to rush the grill along with the T-30 and Panther 88. So I want to be able to take advantage of that if they do actually rush the grill. But once I see the Patton actually get spotted going north, I decide that we actually have an advantage here in the south, so I want to press the issue, and I decide to move up. Unfortunately, the grill, it looks like, kind of either missed or bounced off that T-30, but I know that the T-30 shot, so I'm just going to rush in. I put 1 shot in the T-30, but the Panther 88 is more of a threat to me, to actually do damage to me, so I decided to take him out instead of going after the T-30. And luckily, I didn't actually put another shot on the T-30 because I low-rolled a couple of those shells. But I'm able to take out the Panther 88, and I think the T-30 got distracted there, so my teammates are able to damage him and also take him out. And one of our bats even managed to survive going all the way around from the north. Now again, I'm reloading. I want to put distance between myself and the enemy tanks that are left. And fortunately, that Patton doesn't actually keep vision on me or line of sight on me as I was stuck behind that building, so I'm able to escape back into a bit more of a supportive role closer to my teammates, and I'm almost reloaded again. Now I see that his RU starts to try moving up the 7 line, and there's no cover for him to get into, so I can empty my clip into him and take him out as well. And I have to be a bit careful here because the bat is in a bit of an exposed position, so I don't want to reload immediately, and especially because 2 of the enemy tanks are one-shots. If I were able to get one of those kills, it's worth waiting on my reload. So I decided to move up because I want to try to help this Batchat out. The T-57 kind of snaps me as I cross that opening, which is a little unfortunate, and I'm kind of late getting here to help the bat, so the Patton's able to take him out. Now, I tracked the Patton, and instead of putting my last shell into him, since there was a pretty low chance of me actually killing him, I decided to back off. I'm kind of hoping here that he doesn't know that I only have 1 shot left and probably can't kill him, so he's going to stay passive, and I want to make sure that this T-57 Heavy dies. So the grill, again, bounces his shot, but the T-57 has his turret focused enough on the grill that I'm able to get a shot into his side and finish him off. Now at this point, as long as the Patton doesn't get a shot into me as I'm reloading, we should be in pretty good shape to win this game because I have enough HP that I can take a hit from him and clip him out if I have to. So my main priority there was just to make sure that I got away without the Patton getting a shot into me. I kind of pre-aimed, you saw me pre-aim that corner. I wanted to make it seem as if I still had a shot potentially so that he wasn't going to peek me, but the Patton ends up going the other direction anyway, and he just sits on the other side of the corner or the building from this grill. So it's pretty easy for me once I'm reloaded to just go up on his side and distract him, and then the grill is able to finish him off. So that was a pretty hectic game with a lot of me rushing in to try to empty my clip and then frantically running away without getting hit in return. And I'd say that's fairly typical of games on Kharkov, especially with a tank like the Bat, which has no armor at all that you can use to do any kind of side scraping or anything. You have to play a little bit like that, where you just sort of rush in and out and try to read the situation as best you can so that you minimize the amount of HP you take. But Kharkov really just isn't a very good map for medium tanks in general and for the Batchat. You know, a lot of times games aren't going to be as close as this game was, so you might not have the chance in the late game to do a lot of damage. Because you'll notice if you look back at the replay, I really was only able to do, you know, maybe 2,500 to 3,000 damage before the game got into its later stages. A lot of the damage that I got over the course of this game was, you know, after more than half the tanks on each team had died. And, you know, you're just not going to get a game like that every time you play this map. And that's just one of the things about Kharkov that you have to keep in mind, is that it's such a fast-paced map that you can't afford to hang around and wait and play passively too much. And because the map just doesn't really have any opportunities for getting longer range crossfires on tanks, you have to be willing to just take some gambles and be willing to trade some of your HP in certain circumstances. So anyway, that's the end of this replay, and here are the post-game stats. This game wasn't quite good enough for an ace tanker, but I was able to do about 6,300 damage, which I was pretty happy with considering the map that I was playing on. As I mentioned at the beginning of this video, Kharkov is one of those maps that when I'm playing a medium tank, I feel like I have a bit more trouble on it than most other maps, and even most other city maps, I'd say. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video and found it interesting or helpful in some regard. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.